Okay, so if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A. We will not be monitoring the chat, but go ahead and pop them in the Q&A. Kaylee, thanks for the first question here. So what are the system fields that automatically join as a table column when adding fields columns to the table segment in agent portals? So let me actually open up a different browser here and see if I can. Let me see if I can pull this up on a different browser real quick. I can't do it on here. I'm going to log myself out. I'm in a demo account here. So let me just try this really quick. And I think what, just to clarify, what you're talking about is the fields that come up in the agent portal that are the columns like these right here that I'm on this property screen, except for the agents, like which ones are the default ones that stay on no matter what and that you can't delete. So if that's accurate, I am logging into an agent portal right now to get you that answer. Let me get in here. Okay, so let's see here. When I go to my properties in the agent portal, I see, let me actually go, sorry, it just refreshed on me. Let me go to try to set this on my own first and see. So it looks like I have contract status, contract client type. I don't think these, yeah. Occupant type, property type, sale type, and date created. Let me just go to table columns and see if I can delete those. So let me delete out all of these. Yeah, so the only one, if I add a new field as a column, it adds 4 fields labeled system with it. Interesting. And that's in the agent portal, huh? Because I, in my agent portal that I'm looking at now, the only field is, well, there's 2, property title, which is the full address, and date created. So I would say if that's happening, go ahead and send a video in to help@opentoclose.com or the little purple widget down the bottom right-hand side and let support take a look at this. Yeah, I know whoever anonymous attendee is, I know you're not seeing my screen. I had to open it in a different browser here just to be able to stay in my main screen here. So in the agent portal, the only things I'm seeing is property title and date created. So yeah, Kelly, send us a video on that. We'll have support look at it and see if maybe something's getting added accidentally. So, all right, cool. Well, we got a good number of people in here. We do not have any more questions though. So let's ask Matthew and Hannah and Jana in here. So let's ask them and see if there were any good support questions this week that you might want to cover. Maybe anyone? Anyone?
Go ahead.
Kind of looking through my notes.
I know there's been a few updates. Maybe good to touch on multiple choice fields while we're here, Andrew, and just some strategies of when and how to use those effectively.
Sure. You want to talk through it, and I'll just I will go through the screens and you can kind of talk through the instances.
Okay. Sweet. So let's do kind of like listing fields oftentimes for a good example for this, but as you guys are creating fields in your account, when you are selecting your field type and you choose the choice field type option, that allows you to have a drop down where you can choose a choice from this field as your field value. Now, when you're using this particular field type, you will see this additional drop down here for multiple select. Previously, we were only able to use multiple choice field options when they were on your property after it was initially created. So you could not use those multiple choice fields in your intake form. They were just single choice fields at that time. What we have found is a update where we can now use those multiple choice fields on our intake forms and when we're approving our intake forms and when the property is created. So right now we're really thinking through strategies. When would I need to use a multiple choice field? There is a caveat with this. I do not want to use multiple choice fields in condition logic. So any condition logic for my smart blocks, my intake form triggers, my task triggers, property triggers, anywhere condition logic can be built, I do not want to use a multiple choice field for that. And the reason being is just fancy code language. It has to do with how that array is input. And so it just cannot be used in that condition logic. If you do build conditions around a multiple choice field, it will look okay, but when you actually go to queue that up or fire it off, it's not going to show that those conditions have been met. So the best practice is use it for data entry, a reference point for yourself, where maybe you have a new listing in your system and you want to be able to have a field to show all the different types of rooms in this house. That's been an example I've seen in implementation. It's a field called other rooms, and then they can select it had a fourth office or fourth bedroom. That's a bad example, but it allows you to, again, have that reference point on your property showing here's what's relevant. I don't need this field for condition logic. It's just for myself, for my team to see those details. So hope that kind of covers it. Andrew, feel free to chime in with any additional strategies, points I missed there, but that is the main gist. You can now use multiple choice on your intake forms, on your property. You just do not want to use it in condition logic.
Yeah, so I was just going through here and just typing in that additional rooms that Jana just spoke about. So if you have a, a den and you have whatever else, you could put in here, maybe you have an indoor pool. Let's see, there's a room. So you can go and add those. Now, since I have this checked yes, you'll be able to select multiples in that. So just follow Jana's advice. Don't use them in the places that she talked about. Use them more for informational purposes. And in the future, I'm sure there will be more functionality around that. But and this is a great topic too. If you think of something really cool, how to use those, definitely post it up on the Facebook page. Definitely send it into support. Let us know so that we can share that with other users. Okay, we got a question here from Mark. He's asking how to sync with FUB. So for any of you that have the follow-up bus integration, I will go through this real quick. Whoops, sorry. Throwing my phone across the desk here. All right, let me go to follow-up bus. And I'll go ahead and log in. And let's see what account I want to log into here. We'll just log in. This is fine. And we'll go to let's see. I think I have a Chuck E. Cheese in here. Here we go. Yep. All right, cool. So I'm in Chuck E. Cheese, and then let me bounce back to open to close, and we'll find, I believe, I have a property that's linked to open to close already. See if I can. Here it is. All right, cool. So actually, before we get into the property, let me do this. First thing you're going to want to do is come to apps and API. You're going to want to come down to follow up us, where are we at right here. And instead of manage API key, you're going to insert an API key. You're going to put your API key for the TC. Hopefully that's an admin user, so they have access to all the different contacts. If it's not, then that's fine too. Just know that they're only going to have access to the contacts that are available to them in follow-up boss, or whatever the API key is. So if you need to put a team leader's API key in here, you can definitely do that. Just know that the TC will have access to those contacts. Okay, so then once you come over to a property, and we will come to that property I was just in a second ago. And after you set up a new file, you're going to have this button appear if it's already linked to follow-up boss. If not, you're going to come over here to the follow-up boss tab, and you're going to be able to set up a few different things. So let's see how to incorporate stuff in OTC into FUB. Yep, that's what I'm getting to right now, Mark. So here you go. Dan Corkle is one of my contacts that I added. All you have to do is type in Dan here. It's going to pull all the Dans in the database, and you're able to add that here. Once I add it, I'm going to say, do I want to sync emails, texts, and notes? So over here in this middle column, you can actually sync the notes, texts, and emails that are going out from open to close into follow-up boss. So you can see this is a text, obviously. We put them as notes so we don't screw up anything on the smart list for the agents. We don't want last contact to be a text from the TC asking, if they want to sign in the yard or something like that. So we do put them as notes. We have a text here. You can see this is an email here. You can see, let's see if we have, attachments. So they come in really nice, but they do come in as notes, so just be aware of that. Field data. So this field data, I don't really use this anymore now that we have custom deal fields, but the field data are these fields down. Oh, I'm sorry. These fields down here in the bottom left. I use these more for things that don't change, like kids' names, anniversaries, YLOPO links, maybe form links, things like that. I don't really use a sync with open to close for those because now we have, well, Follow Up Boss has custom deal fields. So in deals, we have the ability to do custom fields, and you can come down here and literally insert every field that you have in open to close here in the custom fields. You'd have to go to deals, and then you have to go to this little star button here, and then you can put in your custom fields here. This is recorded too, so if I'm going a little fast, you can go back and review this recording. So let me go back to Chuck E. Cheese here. You insert all your fields, you can come here, and then you can tell open to close to send these field data over here. So let me go back over to open to close. And we're going to come down to deal sync. You can either link an existing deal in Follow Up Boss, or you can create a new deal from here, send this over, update the deal. Click on these buttons to figure out what you want to put in these fields. And then this data, once you update the deal, we'll send over. You can link it to contacts in Follow Up Boss. You can assign to Follow Up Boss users. So that's the deals. The widget is this over here. Let's see here. That's this widget here. And you're going to have the agents probably just logging into Follow Up Boss and not open to close. So if they want to see what's happening over in open to close from Follow Up Boss, they can come to this widget if you have it turned on. They can see the timeline, any dates you give them access to. We can see details, which are the actual fields updated in real time. So if the TC updates something, it's going to update over here as well. You're going to see documents. This is probably the best feature because the Follow Up Boss files act a little differently. This will give the agents access to all the files that are in the TC's compartment over in the Documents tab and open to close. So they're going to be able to download these, view them, however your browser is set up to do. Just make sure that if you're clicking on this and it's downloading, it's probably because you're in a browser and you have it set to download instead of view. And then you got contacts, you got tasks, you got notes. So you can share whatever you want. Now over and open to close, you can't exclude this from their view. So if like you're in documents and you don't want to share a particular document with an agent, all you have to do is click on this EX button and it's not going to share over in Follow Up Boss. What else did I want to touch on here? Let me go back over here.
Did you already touch on the FUB roles for the contact widget?
Not yet. So that's where I'm going next. Thank you. So once you get into the widgets, very important. So you add the people that you want this widget to show up in. So if this is a husband and a wife, let's pretend, you can add both of them. So no matter what contact you go to over in Follow Up Boss, you're going to see that widget with their transaction. The other thing I forgot to mention, if you go back, let's say it's an investor and they have 15 properties going on, you have access to all those properties if you hit back. So if I hit back here, I can choose which property I want to view, and then that's going to pull that information up. Now over here, what Jana was referencing, when I add this person in, a lot of the times you're going to come over to Chuck E. Cheese and this is going to be blank. And you're going to be like, I know I have stuff in here. Why is this blank? It's probably because you forgot to put a role on it. We have to have a role on it because we have to know what you want to show the agent over here. So if you click on the role, I'll say manage roles, and I can show you, I create one called FUB agent. I just assign this to every person because this is really the agent in Follow Up Boss and what they can see. So this is a little different from like a client role in our client portals where you're saying it's a buyer and I want the buyer to see certain things, or it's a seller. If you're syncing with Follow Up Boss, it's always the Follow Up Boss agent. So anyway, these permissions are in here. You can add as much as you want. Here's the timeline, details, contacts, documents, tasks, all this stuff. You can take this away or put it in. I give my agents access to everything, unlike a client portal where I'm only going to give the buyer, maybe the buyer, not the seller. I would definitely not give them the seller's information, the title officer, the appraiser, the lender, things like that. Whereas the seller may have, I want the seller to see, whoever else, the listing agent's information, the transaction coordinator for the seller, that sort of thing. So make sure that is set right here, or you will not see anything. If this is set for blank, it's not going to know that you want information over in Follow Up Boss, and it will not show you this activity over here. Let me think of what else I'll touch on. I think the big thing is having those deal fields come in so that your agents can come in here. If they don't want to browse through all these menus, they can just come down to the deals here and they can see exactly what's happening with this transaction. So Now, just know there are some syncing things going on. There's a bug with FUB that we have pointed out to them that we are going to, we'll keep pointing it out until they fix it. But it's just a small bug. If you have this open, if you have this deal field open and you go and update something in open to close, it will not update through their API over here. So you have to close this out, update it over in open close, and then come back to FUB and open it up, and then it will be in there. So just be aware of that little bug that's going on right now. Okay.
Sorry, just real quickly here before you move on, to speak on that. A lot of the fields will still try to sync and update with.
Matthew's been having trouble with his internet, so he may be in and out. Not sure. Hey, Matthew. Hey, Matthew. No one can hear you because your internet's going in and out. Why don't you just type it in?
Right, clarify that piece.
Matthew, no one can hear you. Just type it in the Q&A and I'll relay that to everyone. You're kind of coming in and out. All right. So Mark said, super helpful at the end. Let us know how to get the recording. Yeah, so the recording is always posted in here. So if you're in the program, you're going to go to Support Center. It's going to open up the Support Center here, and then you come down to Webinars. And I think it's at the bottom. Yeah, come down here. There you go. Workshop Wednesdays are right here. Cool thing about our staff is they give you a nice summary of what we went over. And then also on the video, they have it segmented up so you can actually skip to right where you want to go, which is incredible.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Okay. So Mark, super helpful. That's great. Let me get rid of that one. And then let's see. For OTC widget and FUB, can the agent see what is missing signatures? Or if I am pending receipt of a document for them, for example, agent visual inspection, disclosure, or walkthrough. Yeah, so the way that they would see that is they would go to, I think, they would probably have to do that through the timeline, or I'm sorry, through the documents tab, and then they would just have to see what documents you actually have and what you don't. So that would be probably the only way. The other way to do it would be put a note in and have that note sync over to here. And so you could come over to open to close to the property that you're in. Let me just open up, let's see here. Let me go ahead and open this property up. And let's just say we want to make a note for the agent. We can say, you know, still waiting on this or still waiting on that. You can type it in here and have it sync over. Now, there is another feature on our scale plan, messages, and you can message back and forth with the agents. I'm not going to go into that today, but if you are on our most upgraded plan, we will have some more information coming out about messaging and how to message back and forth from your agents. Cool. Well, we ran through all of the questions in 20 minutes. So anyone else have any questions? Open to close, follow up us, really anything you're struggling with. Like, is there anything strategy wise that you feel like you could be getting more out of? Is there anything in the system that's kind of mystical to you? Can you show how to create a listener? Yeah, for sure. So this is only going to be for people on the scale plan, just to point that out. A listener is going to be fields. Okay. So if you're creating a trigger in your trigger templates, okay, so let's not intake form triggers, not task triggers. Okay. We're talking about property triggers that have its own little menu here in the property. If you come in and you obviously you'll be creating these in the trigger templates over in our template menu. But when you are creating these, I'm just going to create it here. You do the same thing in the templates. You come in here and add a trigger. It's going to ask you what kind of trigger you want. So in this case, I'm going to do a field section. We're going to go ahead and add it. And we're going to come up here and say, let's see here. So let's grab let's say septic. So these are our septic fields because these don't come in all the time. So this is something that, or actually, you know what, let me say well, because we actually talked about an example on the phone earlier about this. So let's pretend that they say there's no well on the property. The inspector goes out to the property. It's an old mobile home or something, and they find there's a well on the property. And you don't want to have to manually go in and say, add well fields, add well documents, add well tasks, add well, whatever, right? So what we can do is we can come in here and create a listener for the field part. And we can say, are these required? You want to say no, because you're not going to have all the information for all the well fields at one time. And we want to add it. We don't want to remove it. So in this case, it's if septic is yes, or if well is yes, go ahead and add the field. So we're going to add that. Oh, what did I just do with that? Let me see here. See if I put it at the bottom. Okay, so fields, here we go. Here's the one I added. So fields, we're going to add a condition. Condition is going to be property fields. It's going to be well. So I don't know what I have in here for well. Let's just pretend that one of these is a well, yes or no, right? And then you would say is equal to, and then we would say yes. Okay, so. And we're just going to pretend that this field is if well, if there is a well on the property. Okay, so if well is yes, it's going to bring in these fields. Now, the one thing you're going to have to remember is we want to say if well is no too, because what if you accidentally say yes and those fields come in? You want to be able to say no and take those fields right back out. So we're going to come back up here and create an opposite trigger function. So we're going to say field section, add, and we're going to say the well again. So well, add, and you're going to say remove this time. Okay, so well fields are being removed. And then when are they being removed? So let me come down here and say, oops. Yep, okay. Okay, so here's the one. Let me turn this on here. I don't know why these are graying out. I'll have to check on that. Let's see here. Whoa. Okay, so anyway, fields. So here's the remove well field. And then we're going to add a condition. And we're going to say if property field well, and we're just going to choose that. Oh, this is really weird. Oh, there we go. Well, huh. All right, well, I'm just going to choose any field. And then we'll say is equal to, and then this one would be no. Okay, so I don't have a field that has a yes or no on it. Let me just grab this. Is equal to, oops. Oh, this is a date field. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up here. Let's find something that's a choice field, just so I have it. All right, let's see here. Let me grab a. Well, I can't find a yes or no field here. Here we go. Is equal to no. Okay, so we're pretending this is a well field. So let me just go back in here. If well is equal to no, I want you to remove these fields, right? So now we have if yes, insert the fields. If no, remove the fields. When I come down to the well field, which probably isn't in here at this time. Let's see. Let me go up here and say manage, and we'll add that well field. Let's see where that is. See if I can find that. Oh, I did not see it. If someone sees it, let me know. It might be in a different field group.
Want to try using your browser, Command F or Control F?
Yeah. Oh, here, there it is actually, well water. So special conditions are well water. It's just not in here. So let me just add that. So if this, now if the well water field, if I change that to yes, I don't have these set up right because I couldn't find those fields. But if I said yes, it's going to bring in that whole field section for well. If I say no, it's going to remove that whole field section. That's going to remove in real time. One thing I want to point out, if you're using triggers, listeners are only for the fields. Okay, so if you have a template that you want to do the same thing with, you can still do the same thing, but it's not automatically going to happen. It's going to come up to your health bar, and then you're going to have to approve that new template coming in. The reason why is because in our beta testing, we had a property that was like 20 days in, and then someone accidentally changed a field and removed that. They removed the field. They removed the task template halfway through the transaction. And when they added it back in, it added all of the tasks that they had already done. So it becomes a huge pain in the butt, and it's fairly destructive that you have to go back to your deleted stuff and kind of mimic this, delete all the emails out of the health bar. It's just a very destructive type thing. So we want to make sure that if you change that field, you actually meant to change that field. So when it will go up to the health bar for templates, emails, texts, all those certain things that you don't want to happen automatically. But fields, you know, no one's seeing the fields but you guys. So those are listeners. They'll pop in, they'll pop right back out. Okay, so hopefully, Erica, that answered all your questions about that. Let's see. How do you create a listener, and how do you show how to create a date template and its trigger? Okay, so cool. Let's go over here to templates, and we'll go to date templates, and we'll go to one that's existing just because it takes a while to build these. So you're going to come in here and add one, and you can say like contract acceptance date or whatever your fields are here for dates. So this is the date that you want to calculate. Okay. So when you're in here, you're calculating the option end. That's the inspection period end date, whatever you call it in your state, due diligence end date. That's what this is. So let's just use Arizona as an example. We have 10 days written on the contract, right? So I'm going to put my 10 in here. But in the past 2.5 years, I haven't seen a 10-day inspection period because everyone's doing 1-day inspection period or 5-day or 0 days or whatever the case may be. But I'll go ahead and put in my boilerplate for my contract in here. So I have the 10 calendar days after contract acceptance date. So as soon as it's signed, I have 10 days to get that. Now, if I do have a 1-day inspection period, I want to be able to handle that effectively. So this days field, right? You'll notice in my properties, and I'll go over this in a minute, but I'll have a dash days field. This lets me know that it's a number field, and it lets me know that this is the overwrite field or the fallback field. So if I type something in the inspection period length, let's just pretend it's 1, it's going to overwrite this 10 and recalculate my dates. So it's going to be contract acceptance period plus 1 equals the end date instead of the 10. So anything typed in here. So how I recommend doing this is on your intake form, you can have the whatever questions you're asking your agent. On the secondary part where the TC is filling out the fields, you're going to want to have all these days fields in there for them to confirm. So inspection period length, they'll type in 1 day. You know, escrow, maybe their earnest money. Maybe in your state it's 2 days, but they are out of state and they requested 6 days instead. So you type a 6 in that one. And basically it's just going to go through and recalculate all these dates and all the dates that are dependent on these dates. So it's really effective. It's going to save you a ton of time. You can only have 1 date template assigned to a property at any given time. Okay. So the way that I like to explain this is if you have a date template, and let's just pretend that this is my Arizona standard date template for my contract that happens 90% of the time, then I have this all built out with all my different, you know, calculations. And you're going to have a ton of them in here. I have like septic, well, don't worry about having things in here that don't affect every transaction, like put everything. Because if you do have a transaction with a well, you want it to be able to automatically calculate those dates. So like earnest money, home inspection, home warranty, repair dates, inspections, all these types of things should be in here. So then what you'll do is, let's say you have a Zillow contract. Well, Zillow, so we calculate everything in Arizona on calendar days. Zillow has business days in their contract. So what I would do is I would copy this. So I'd clone this under options, clone it. It's going to make a new version of it. And then I'm going to go back through this next one. I'm going to name it Zillow contract. And I'm just going to redo all the things that are different from that contract. And so on my intake form, one of my questions is going to be what type of contract is this? Is this an Arizona standard resale contract? Is this a Zillow contract? Is this an open door contract? Is this an offer pad contract? And in my intake form triggers, so if I go over to one of my intake forms and in my triggers now, what I'm going to, intake forms, go into one of these and go to the form triggers. Now in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say, if, you know, whatever is equal to whatever, then add in so I'll give you an example. If Arizona purchase contract or a resale purchase contract was selected, then put in my Arizona resale date template. If Zillow is the contract type, then put in my Zillow date template. So you're going to have multiple date templates with a lot of overlapping information in them. But that's okay because you're only assigning one date template to every transaction. And if that date doesn't exist, like the example I just gave you, like there's no well on the property, it's just going to ignore it. There's like an invisible line between fields that exist and don't exist. So don't worry, you're not going to get a bunch of triggers popping in about wells if there's no well on the property. So hopefully that was clear enough for you to understand the importance of these date templates. I mean, you will save a ton of time. I still see people, I get on calls and they're still calculating on a spreadsheet or on their fingers. And it's like, all this stuff can be automated if you just spend an hour learning how to do this. Okay. How do I set up a listing intake form and then have that information into the seller under contract? Yeah. So this is a popular topic. If you go back to previous Wednesday workshops, it's on there probably 1,000 times, but I'm going to go over it quickly. But if I miss anything, you might want to review those other ones just in case. So a couple different ways you can do it. One way is to not use open to close intake forms. You can go use JotForm, WooForms, all these things, and bring that information in through the API. If you do it that way, you probably want to be on the scale plan, because if you're bringing outside information just into the fields, you need to trigger it somehow. And our intake forms don't work with outside intake forms. So basically what would happen is you would have a trigger template with what would normally be in your intake form to be able to trigger and say, if septic is yes, add my septic fields, add my septic documents, add my septic tasks. Okay. So you would need the scale plan for that. I'm not going to cover that right now. One way to do it is come over to your properties. And once you're under contract, it depends on if your agents are filling out the intake forms or your TCs are filling out what's going to make more sense here. You can come into any transaction and you can duplicate it. Now, I'm a big proponent of not inputting pending information into your listing, because if that pending falls through, then to go back and figure out what you need to take out, well, it's just a pain in the ass, honestly. It's a huge pain. And the other thing is you want a clean file for when that goes back under contract with somebody else. So what I would suggest is clicking here, this little button, not this one, but this one over here, and duplicating this. So you can duplicate this, and then you can take the information that's already in here for the listing and then add in your under contract information if you want to do it that way. Okay. The way that I do it on my team is I have two separate files. So I have an intake form for listings, and it comes in as a listing, and you can name it however you want. You could type in listing after this. If you want to change these names, you can just come in here and click on this and type in, listing or whatever. So you can denote which one's which. You can also have all your filters set up on the property page so that you're only looking at listings or you're only looking at under contract properties. That's probably the better way. So I have a listing form come in, and that listing, it creates a new listing with all the different things I have to do for listings. I have my agents fill out a different under contract form. So I'm actually going to have two of these with the same address. I'm going to have 123 Spear listing, and I have 123 Spear under contract. For me, it's not important to have all that information in the listing in my under contract. It just doesn't affect me that much. I know some people love to have all that information in one place. If you do, that's great. Duplicate or do one of the other strategies I'm going to tell you about. For me, not important. So I'm just going to have an under contract file, because I want to be able to come over here to this. And if it falls out, I'm going to put canceled, and then I'm going to go right back up to here to the listing, and I'm going to turn it back to active. And now I'm right back with a clean file for my listing that I can work with. So I like having two. Some people don't, but I would recommend, even if you're going to have all that listing information in with your under contract, that you make a copy of it first, just in case this falls out. So you don't have to go back and try to pull documents out and and then where are you storing those at? So it's better just to have a, hey, this was under contract file and it got canceled. And then you can keep track of all your cancellations as well. That's another advantage. You can pull up and say, how many canceled files did I have opposed to how many files did I close? I see a 10% fallout rate. So I need to increase my prices, maybe $20 a file, because to account for all those cancellations if you're not charging for cancellations. So there's a bunch of different factors that go into this on how it's going to be best for you and the way that you work. So if you want specific strategy, you want to have a call with someone, or you want to send in a ticket, definitely do that and say, this is the way I work. And then we can give you better feedback on, well, what's the best way to do under contracts and listings. Let's see here. I have a hard time removing red boxes in my intake form template. Any idea how to fix? Do you know what they're talking about, Jana? Red boxes and intake?
They
Or
might
not?
be referring to the fields.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's the fields where if you select green and then red and then deselect the green, there's a little bit of funkiness, because if you have it required, you have to have it green. And so the system is going to essentially try and override that connection, because it needs it to have the green if it's going to be red. And then, you know, when you're removing one, you have to do it in a certain order. So it may be that we're seeing.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to find something down here that's like, yeah, there's nothing that.
And I think it would be on the back end as you're making changes to the intake form.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. All right. If you want to give us more information on that, on the red boxes, we can go deeper into that for sure. I'm just not exactly sure what you're talking about. I set up the intake form template, no save buttons. So when I complete the intake, it is stuck on red. Let's see here.
Can you clarify if that's the review page that you're seeing that on, or are you on the back end of the intake form?
Yeah, are you on this side of the intake form, or are you on like filling out the intake form? This side. Okay. So you have to select green before you select red, just so you know. And you have to turn off red before you turn off green. Okay. It goes left to right and then right to left when removing, or else there is a little bit of funkiness sometimes if I try to make this red. Oh, it's actually letting me do it, which is weird. Oh, yeah. See how I clicked that and now it took that off. I have to go in the left to right order when I'm adding. I'm surprised that it let me keep this. Let me try to get back in here. What is this? The intake form seller side. Okay. Okay, yeah, it didn't save that. It didn't save that red. That's a little, I'll have to talk to Shane about that and see if we can get that fixed so it doesn't stay in there. But yeah, so I don't know if that's going to fix your issue, but make sure you're going left to right on the adding and right to left on the deletion of those. So,
And just for context of why, the green means that field shows up on the intake form. The red means it's required. So if you try and make it required, but it's not showing up on the intake form, that logic is what's conflicting. So
yeah, we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen, because you don't want an invisible field that's required, or they're never going to be able to complete their intake form. So if you have an intake form that someone's saying, hey, I can't hit the submit button, it's not letting me, but everything is completed. Well, or you have a field on there that says, hey, this field's missing, and you don't even have the field on your form, come back in here and check and make sure that some glitch didn't happen where you have this red and no green here. So the other thing in properties sometimes that happens too, where like the field wasn't added to the property and it creates some funkiness too. So just, if you have issues like that, get a hold of support with a video and we can walk through that with you for sure. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Okay, cool. We can solve those issues. What's the difference between parent-child task versus 2 triggers back to back? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I'll go through both. And if you want to type in more details on that, feel free. So parent-child is just, I have to click off of one thing before another, right? So let me get into tasks here. And let me get in here and I'll say that this is a parent-child relationship with congratulations email. So this is the child. And then let me see if I can find the parent. Let me try a different one. So it's like side by side, confirm earnest money. All right, let me do that. Okay, confirm earnest money. Let's see here. course, it's going to be all the way down, so I have to work for this. Was it this one? Yeah, okay. So now you can see one is based off the other one. So if I go and try to check off this task. Oh, what happened there? Let's see. Oh yeah, so now the other one's not dependent on it anymore. Let's see here. So confirm, let me unlink that task and do the new task number 2 here. Let me see if I can do it the other way. New task number 2. There it is. Okay, cool. So now let me check this one off, this child one. Task is linked. I can't check off the child task because the parent isn't checked off. Okay, so you're going to have to check off the parent first and then the child. So that's the parent-child relationship. Now there is subtasks as well. If you don't want to do parent-child, you can come down here and click on subtasks if you're on version 2. And if you aren't on version 2, email support, get on version 2. You'll have some more, you'll have commissions, reporting, subtasks. There's a bunch of other things we've added if you get on the version 2 pricing. So subtasks must be completed before parent or not. You have that option. You can come down here and say, you know, sub 1, sub 2. So you have all these subtasks in here and you can rearrange them and do that. So parent-child or subtasks or both. And then as far as the triggers go that you were talking about, triggers are totally different. So if you're talking about task triggers, it's if I check this task off, these triggers are going to fire. So email going out, text going out, template getting added, they're all going to go to the health bar for you to send. Fields getting added, things like that. And then if you're on our scale plan, you can do straight triggers. So you don't even need tasks if you're on this. You don't need many tasks, I should say, because you're going to take your tasks and turn them into, if it's opening emails, check off that task and 5 emails go out, 1 to the lender, 1 to escrow, 1 to the buyer, 1 to the listing agent, you know, all these different people. You can just make those individual triggers. And when the conditions are true, the system's actually going to let you know when to send emails instead of you telling it by going into each transaction, checking your task, checking off tasks, having everything go to the health bar and then checking those and then sending those. Now you're just changing fields, contacts, and documents, and the system's like, hey, you changed this field and this document exists. So you told me if those 2 things are true, that you need to send this email. So now emails are just going to populate by you doing your regular workflow. Emails, texts, templates, all this stuff is just going to populate up here in the health bar and in your trigger, in your trigger menu under the ready to go. And so I know that these conditions have been met. So you can see this condition's been met, this condition's been met, this condition's been met. But if I go to some of the other ones that are in process still, you can see that I have something that's not true in red here. I don't have a home inspector. So as soon as I put a home inspector in the property, this is going to be ready to go. Buyer and home inspector exists. It's going to tell me to send this text 1 day after contract acceptance at 12:30 a.m. So hopefully all that makes sense. Anthony, appreciate that question. A lot of people get stuck on that parent-child relationship, subtasks, and then having triggers in there as well. Cool. We are out of questions. We are at 12:45, so good timing. I'll give you guys another couple minutes to put any last questions or thoughts or just struggles. You want to talk strategy on something, best ways to do things, best ways to think about things, best things to set up first, like anything that's going to help you get to that next level. That's what we're here for on these days. So I'll give you a couple more minutes. While we're waiting, I'm just going to go through some things I say on every single webinar, and that is your profiles here, your organization screens here, your billings here, your support center is here if you want to open it up in a new tab. The idea lab, if you have good ideas, put them in there. We review those every quarter. Keyboard shortcuts, we have a lot more of these coming. Shane was just showing us some of these yesterday. Really cool stuff. I think Shift Control B is now billing. Shift Control, there's a lot of Shift Control things. So if you pop that open, Shift Control P is new property, Shift Control O is new contact. So if you learn these, you're going to be flying around the property. Control Shift T, template editor, field editor, like these are great. I hate going over here and going to the field editor every time. So Shift Control E is going to be my new favorite button. Also in that menu is going to be affiliate program, which is changing. So don't worry about this one. It's going to be totally changing. Then you got the change log in here. The change log is a little bit behind right now. We just had a ton of updates come out. So we're working through those and trying to get things updated. So, but you will see the previous ones on there right now. What else do I like to point out? Support. Support is here for you. Like if you have questions, feel free to click the little purple button down the bottom right-hand side. I don't have it on here, but you will. That goes to support. Please submit a video. We can do it 100 times faster if you submit that video. Okay, we got a couple more questions coming in now. The only other thing I will, if you're struggling, you want to pay for some time with our onboarding team, feel free to do that. We do have some, just email support, ask them for some time. They'll get you some pricing and all that stuff on there. If you want to go deep dive one-on-one type strategy stuff. Okay. Best way to get started. Yeah, best way to get started is email support and ask them the best way to get started, because I think there's a template that they will send you with a good order to go in. I don't want to speak out of turn on our onboarding team and how they do things, but it's generally going to be, you know, contact roles, file roles, fields is kind of that foundation that you're setting up. Email templates and text templates are next. And then I'll let them take it from there. But go ahead and just send an email to support. Ask them the best way to get started, and they'll refer that over to the onboarding team, and they'll reach out with some type of email or template email back to you telling you the best way. And then feel free to come back on these Wednesdays and dig into those items. We can definitely dig into those. How do you record what you're doing? Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. I have this right here. This is my Loom. I can say, I just want to show my screen only, so you can't see my picture. And you can get rid of this too. Get rid of that off your screen so you can see more of your screen. And a Loom account is free, up to 5-minute videos. And so now I can just hit start recording. And it records my screen for as long as I want. I stop the recording. It gives me a link button. You just click on the link and paste it right into the support tab. Now, one thing I will say, please type something in there so we know how in-depth it's going to be. Like type, hey, I'm having trouble with task triggers aren't doing whatever, and then put the video in link. Don't just put the video in link, because it just makes for a better workflow for us. It's just a favor, really. I'm asking. You can do it either way, but it really helps us out if there's a little bit of verbiage in there before the link. So Loom is the way that I do it. And that's just a Chrome extension. Also on Edge, they have an extension. So it's really easy to use. Anthony, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. If you could tell me a video or where to start or how to get started from the beginning. I have a solid foundation before working with triggers or any other API stuff. Yeah, reach out to support and let them get you on board with our onboarding team and let them get you some advice on step 1 through 10 on that and how to go about it so that you're not overwhelmed. You know, let me say something here. I know we're talking about triggers and we're talking about all these advanced stuff on here because people are asking questions. But really, the foundation is the most important. If you can spend the first 4 to 6 months just getting that foundation really locked in and understanding the concepts of open to close. Now, it may take some people 2 weeks. It may take other people a year or whatever. It doesn't matter how fast. It's getting that foundation in and getting it solid, because after that, it's really easy to add all this automation features that we're releasing. So it's really easy to go from the foundation to add your smart blocks. And then from the foundation, after you add your smart blocks, to add, you know, maybe some triggers and things like that. And this is only going to supercharge you. You're going to go from 30 transactions a month to 60 to 90 to, unless you're in California, you're probably going to get up over 120 eventually. We have people doing 160 pendings a month on the program. So it depends on your service level too, and all those sort of things, what state you're in, all that good stuff. So don't compare yourself to other people. Just try to improve upon the number of transactions you're doing. And that's what we're here for, is to help you with that strategy and help you with those little things that you can do to improve that over time. So don't get overwhelmed. Don't feel like you're behind the curve with people. Use the Facebook group for strategy. Use these Wednesdays to dig into specific things you're having trouble with. I can walk you through examples like I did today. That's what we're here for. And also shout out to the onboarding and implementation team for creating group classes. We're going to start group classes. They're going to run 8 classes and they're going to cycle through. And so you can go to all 8 in a certain week period. I'm not sure. Jana, you want to get on and just kind of give an overview of that?
Yeah. So we're working on creating a landing page that you guys can go to register for these group classes as well. So as we get that fully ironed out, we'll be sharing those links. These are, again, group classes. They're going to be open for anyone to join, and they're going to be focused on the foundation specifically for the system. So there will be on Wednesdays is a plan right now. We'll have one session mid-morning and then one session in the afternoon. So that way users can attend the onboarding session, utilize this Wednesday workshop for any deeper strategy questions they want to continue to dig into. And like Andrew said, we're going to have 8 classes to start, and we're going to rotate those so that way in a month's time, you can attend all 8 sessions if you come to both our morning and afternoon class. So
a lot of resources that we're putting in and already have. So make sure I commend you for being here on this, because honestly, this is great. This is like one-on-one coaching, right? You may not hear everything you want to hear, but if you want to bounce on at the beginning, ask your question. First person puts a question in is the first person we answer. So if you don't have a lot of time, you can always bounce on here really quick. Try to be the first person to get your question in, get it answered, and hop back out. Doesn't offend us at all. This is here to help you guys and just be another resource so we can answer questions. So classes, we don't have an actual start. Oh, we might have a start date. Jenna, do we have a start date?
we technically do. It really is just depending on this landing page for registration. So we are shooting for next week or 2 to get the first classes live. The first month is going to be really a beta period as we're seeing what makes the most sense for structure and everything, getting feedback from users. So likely in the next week or 2 is when we're hoping to go live with that.
Awesome. Yeah, use Wednesdays, use the group classes. If you have friends that you want to recommend the program, we're going to start having like a sales introduction from the sales team on what the program does and just kind of an overview. A lot of stuff coming. So hopefully we can help you guys out. If any of you on this call are using triggers, can you message me on Facebook, on whatever? Just let me know how high of a level you're using the triggers at. I want to talk to a couple of people doing triggers so I can brainstorm a few things with them. Will group classes be included in the pricing? Yes, group classes are free, which is the best part about them. One-on-one is where you have to pay. So if you want one-on-one deep dive in your system and have the whole half hour or hour for you alone, those are paid because, obviously we have to employ that implementation staff, but we're trying to get people onboarded better with these group classes so that more people can come on. We're not going to, hopefully they're not like, 80 people in there, hopefully it's a reasonable amount where you're going to be able to get your questions answered, and we'll work through that. It's new. So we're going to take your suggestions. We're going to take the suggestions that we find just from doing them, and then we're going to build better classes over time.
We had a follow-up with that. Once the landing page is ready to go, we'll have that link posted up, likely in-app and then in our knowledge base. So we'll likely have that posted up in the upcoming Wednesday workshops as well for you, Mark.
Cool. Well, I appreciate everyone being on here. You guys took the initiative to better yourself, and I respect that. Feel free to come on every Wednesday if you want. These are, we typically only get about 20 or 30 people. So like use them for free coaching. And we'd love to see you on here. We'd love to answer your questions. Feel free to reach out to support in the meantime, if you have questions in between, and we will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you.